Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 351 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where we're about to dive into all things Rohan. But for now, it's time to take a break from our study of the appendices and do some live Q&A.
Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Matt, the Nerd of the Rings, and I'm here with the man of the West, who's already in line to see the War of the Rohirrim, Alan Sisto.
That's right, Matt. Time for One Punch Helm.
Yeah.
Folks, join us as we welcome a few of our patrons to join us for our 29th quarterly Questions After Nightfall.
Yeah, how many years is that? I'm not good at math,
quarterly,
Alan.
so it's a little more than 7.
Yeah. So there you go.
Though I think a lot of seasons we only did 3 because it's sort of hard to pull one off in the middle of the summer hiatus. So I think
that's fair.
We've been doing these for 8 years now. Yeah.
Okay. That's a long time, Alan.
It is. You were what, 3 when we started?
I think I was 6.
Great. Yeah. I believe that. All right.
Yeah. Well, no matter how you got here, folks, you're all welcome here in the common room here at the Prancing Pony Podcast. We are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and bad jokes along the way.
That's right. We do love our deep dives into the lore, discussing our favorite themes, and a whole lot more. But once a quarter, we take a break from our read-through, in this case of the appendices, and welcome a few of our patrons to join us here in the common room and bring along some of their very best questions.
And I can't stress this enough, we have no idea what they're going to ask us. So, as we've done so many times before, yes, we're clueless here. We're just going to do the best job that we can in answering their questions with whatever we have on our shelves and in our all too limited brains.
Speak for yourself, sir. We are going to have fun with that for sure. But yes, as with our previous Questions After Nightfall episodes, aside from any possible edits for, nervous coughs and time spent flipping through pages while we look for answers, we will be presenting this as it was recorded live. So all the questions and the answers you hear in this episode will have been recorded during this session.
And if you'd like to be on one of these with us sometime, join the Fellowship of the Podcast at patreon.com/prancingponypod. Questions After Nightfall episodes are recorded once a quarter, and patrons at the Elrond's Honorarium tier and higher are invited to join.
It's just one of the ways that we show our appreciation to those who support the show, giving them the opportunity to join us, make us laugh, make us think, maybe get an answer from us, and almost always embarrass us in the best possible way. Now, let's go ahead and get started. Matt, who do we have up first tonight?
First up, we have Marie.
All right, Marie, welcome back to Questions After Nightfall.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I had a question about Imrahil and the fact that he seems to accept the fact that Aragorn is the rightful king without any proofs or, unless it's the Elendamir. I'm just curious, did he maybe meet Aragorn when he was Thorongil and working, serving in Minas Tirith, or he has, this guy has some pretty, is definitely up the scale in the royalty category, but he seems to have no questions as far as Aragorn's right to be king.
That is a very good question. The sort of the bona fides that Aragorn has are just accepted really by a lot of people. But I think in the case of Imrahil, and I am going to look at the timeline to see maybe how old was he when Thorongil came to Minas Tirith.
So I've actually got that. He would have been 25 years old when around that
very
time.
Possible then that he would have either met Thorongil or at the very least had heard about him, because he was really the right-hand man of the steward at the time, Denethor's father. And I'm sure his feats were well known. So that's part of it. All he might need to do is say, hey, remember me? I'm Thorongil. But I think for him, seeing him on the battlefield, watching him wield Anduril, and seeing his ability to fight and lead would have been proof enough. Here's a guy out here who, I'm thinking of that wonderful passage about how Aragorn, Éomer, and Imrahil were unscathed. Nobody of the enemies wanted to even approach them. It was sort of like, oh, no, I don't want, you take that guy. I'm going to go on and take this low-level guard. I don't want to touch that Aragorn or that Imrahil or that Éomer. So he's sort of put in that same category. So Imrahil himself, knowing of his own lineage and his own royalty, he's watching himself. He's watching Éomer, the king's heir and eventual king then after Theoden's death. And I think he sees Aragorn, and he sees that royalty just inherent in the way he wields Andúril. But yeah, the Elendilmere, the Elessar, all of those things fit together.
Yeah, and the standard of Elendil that he unfurls when he shows up.
That's, absolutely. Certainly that's the claim.
Yeah,
Whether that's, okay, I believe you right away.
Yeah. Like, can standards be forged, I guess? That's the,
they certainly get to be made. This was made by Arwen. She could have made one for me, and it would be illegitimate.
Yeah, right. It's like a fake ID. Like, wait,
Cosplay.
give me a closer look at that. Like, is that real mithril on that standard that I see?
Is that really made of mithril and gold? Because, okay, then that's fine. I mean, if that's made by Arwen, Elrond's daughter, yeah, it does check out.
This looks like Rivendell quality here. Okay, I'm buying this. It's not the Wish version of the standard of Elendil. Yeah, it's the real deal.
Exactly. That is a really good question because we don't see anybody saying, by the way, how are you king? Like, what are your, can you show me your ID? And I think, just simply put, it's a combination of factors. The fighting, also later on, the healing. The hands of the king or the hands of a healer. Imrahil might or might not be familiar with the old wives' tale about that Ioreth is. But certainly the idea that he's descended from that line, the line of Luthien, that would have those powers. So I think combination of factors, one of which would just be Imrahil's own sort of inherent recognition of, I'm royal, you're even more royal, you must be the king.
I think Imrahil says something that implies that he was familiar with the...
Oh, really? All right. While you're thinking about anything that Imrahil said, I'm actually looking at one more fact, and it has to do with the arrival. You already mentioned the standard, of course. That's a huge thing, right? The standard of the kings of the kings of Gondor, the standard of Elendil. At the end of that passage, we read about them all coming off the ships onto the quays and sweeping north like a storm. At the end of that, we read, "But before all went Aragorn with the flame of the west, Andúril like a new fire kindled, Narsil reforged as deadly as of old, and upon his brow was the star of Elendil." That right there is the symbol of royalty in the north. It was Elendil's own. I mean, this is a duplicate, right? It's the Elendilmere, and the original Elendilmere was lost with the Isildur. Elessar would eventually find it again, but this is a sign of his royalty for sure. And it's only shortly after that we read about the three of them, the three amigos, as I'm going to call them now, Aragorn, Éomer, and Imrahil. and that conjures up some images I really enjoy about them being unscathed, right? That they had this, such was their fortune and the skill and might of their arms, and few indeed had dared to abide them or look on their faces in the hour of their wrath. So I think the Star of Elendil, combined with the sword, combined with the fact that Éomer already was buying it, right? Because Éomer had met him earlier and accepted his claim. Mithrandir would have certainly echoed that. I think there's enough evidence to support that Imrahil would be like, okay, yeah, we're good.
He's on board. He's on board.
Certainly better than the crazy old man currently in the role. Just tried to kill his son.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. Great question, Marie. I really enjoy that. Imrahil's one of my favorite characters, by the way. I just love that guy because he's totally underrated. There's Aragorn and Éomer, who are just, everybody knows how tough they are, but then there's Imrahil. So, yeah, exactly. Lewis points out in the chat, my crazy brother-in-law. I'd almost forgotten about that because that is exactly the relation between Imrahil and Denethor. All right, Matt, who did we have up next?
We have Sam up next.
Sam, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is my second time. So, I know we got to just talk about the good guys for a chance. Let's change gears and talk about the bad guys.
Oh, those are always fun.
So my question is, does it ever surprise you that Tolkien never wrote more about the backstories behind the Nazgûl and who it is that's behind the cloaks, who got the rings? Like he wrote so much about everyone. Yeah. And these are like arguably the prime villains.
They really are. They're certainly the face of the villain. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he barely wrote anything. Like we get the Witch King, we get, what's his name? The Easterling.
Camul, the Easterling, the only named Ringwraith. Yeah.
Like that's all we get, really, Tolkien. Like, Christopher, did you miss a box? Like,
I would love it if he missed a box. That would be fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
Can you guys speculate on if he avoided the topic intentionally? There's a box of notes missing, and if you could, what backstory would you write for them?
Thank you. I'm loving that option right there to write some very complex.
I know you guys have been on what if kicks recently. So
especially when Don's on the show, I do a lot of what if in Middle Earth. That's sort of his strength. That's a great question, Sam. Thank you for it. Yeah, you're right. We know so very little about the men themselves. We know that it is said that 3 of them were great Númenórean lords of high rank. We know that one of those would end up being the Witch King. We know
presumably,
and then we know that Camul the Easterling is the only named one. We know that he's sort of like second in rank because he's the one who ends up ruling Dol Guldur when Sauron's in Barad-dûr and the Witch King is in Minas Morgul. But boy, there's not a lot more that we know, is there?
No. It keeps them very mysterious, though. I will say that. It's like waiting to see Jaws until a certain point in the film. There's like a certain fear that comes of the unknown, which I think makes sense. Yeah, I see Jenny's raising her hand here.
Jenny, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to second that for me, the lack of personality of them all makes them all scarier. Somebody said, or I read, or I heard, somebody said that ring wraiths are like pure fear.
That's about right. That is their only power. Yeah.
And that's their power, and they can't hurt anybody or do anything except through fear. And I think if you start giving them personalities and remembering their kingly things when they were human in full form, then they lose that.
That's a very good point, right? I mean, you when you name something, when you identify it, you take away some of that unknown, and that does reduce the fear, right? I mean, that identification alone makes it a little less scary. I mean, even the Witch King, we only know his title, the Witch King. We don't know who he was. We don't know what he did, other than that he was a mighty sorcerer of old. That's about it.
I wouldn't be opposed. Like, it's one of those things where if Tolkien would have written it, I would have read it, obviously.
Oh, heck yeah.
I like the idea, and especially because Sam left the idea, the door open for what ifs. I'm just gonna kick that door open and go charging in right now, because I actually I like the idea of knowing like a backstory or having my own headcanon of backstories for these characters, and the idea that is lost to them makes it compelling for me. So even Camul, if Camul has no memory of who he was because he's so reduced to nothing but this wraith form, that's kind of cool. So I feel like this freedom as a fan to have headcanons. So a couple of my headcanons are or stories that I would do if I was waving a magic wand and making stories. So I would have at least one Haradrim ring wraith, and the motivation, the seduction that happens there is that I'm pretty sure the timing works out where Númenor is oppressing the Haradrim, and he gets a ring of power in order to help lead his people against the Númenóreans.
Oh yeah.
But obviously it backfires, and he might have some temporary victories against the Númenóreans, but we all know what happens there.
Oh, almost certainly. I mean, Camul's an Easterling, so we got one Easterling. We're at least going to have one Haradrim. I think we're going to have a Dunlending, and then we know we got 3 lords of Númenórean race, and that leaves 3 more who could come from anywhere. You might have a corrupt Northman, right? We do learn before the Northmen become the Eotheod that there were some Northmen that actually fought alongside the enemy, though most were allied with Gondor. You could have
Khand,
yes, the Variags of Khand. Yeah, you could have a Variag of Khand from there serving as one of the ring wraiths. I mean, it's a really interesting question as to who they might be, what they might have done in their lives. Yeah. But there's so much about the ring wraiths in specific that just remains a mystery. And like Jenny suggested, there's something about that mystery that does make them more terrifying.
Yeah.
And I'm sure one of them is very short and named Eärien, in case anybody's watching Rings of Power. There's also the most punchable of the ring wraiths is named Kemen.
Oh gosh. I really hope he's not the Witch King.
I hope he's not the Witch King. He's too short to be the Witch King. Yeah, he's also too much of a wuss to be the Witch King.
He's too lame. He's too lame to be the Witch King.
I'm almost wondering, and I know I'm going off on a Rings of Power tangent. We try to keep Rings of Power separate from the PPP, but I'm failing on this particular answer because I sort of feel like maybe they're going to go off lore and have the Istar, who is not Saruman, but one of the blues who's gone bad. They might give him a spot as
Witch King.
Maybe he might even be Camul the Easterling. Who knows? Since he's from the East. But yeah, we'll see.
I will say the word Camul does not appear in the Lord of the Rings. That's Unfinished Tales.
That's true. That is Unfinished Tales. So it's not. I mean, I guess if we want to get into discussions of canonicity, we can, but let's not, because we could be here all day for that. Yeah. Jenny, one more thing to add here.
Just very briefly, seeing you brought in the Rings of Power.
Well, I opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah. In terms of evil, there's so much backstory for Sauron. I feel his evil is being diluted.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. He's terrifying, of course, and they do make it clear that people can't even stand to be in his presence. It's just too much. But yeah, that's a good point. The less we know, the less we know, the more terrifying. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I Lewis also mentions in the chat Tal Elmar. That would be a super, super deep cut. I mean, I think I'm actually working through the tale of Tal Elmar right now in today's Tolkien Times, and maybe not so much him, but one of the other people in that story, right? One of the master of that region, or one of Hazad's kin or something along those lines. But there are some people there who really downright hate the Númenóreans, who would make for a really, really good Nazgûl if you're looking for people to defeat Gondor. So, oh man, mighty in their day, kings, sorcerers, and warriors of old. Of course, some of them were already that to begin with, as we know the Witch King of Angmar was for sure. Good question though, Sam. Really fun. I love playing around with the bad guys. All right, Matt, who's up next?
We've got Lewis up next.
Lewis, welcome back, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So my question was sparked by your recent discussion with Don about the appendix summarizing the Second Age. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of this question that I've long wondered about.
Uh-oh.
So at the end of the First Age, the Valar gave the half-elven Elrond and Elros the choice of which kindred to belong to. We know, of course, that Elrond chose to be counted among the elves, and Elros chose to be of mankind. Therefore, he chose the gift of men, which means, among other things, that he would die and pass beyond the confines of the world. Now, we've gone over many times the reasons why the gift of men is meant to be seen in the context of the Legendarium as a real gift by Iluvatar. But here's a sticking point. At the same time, Elros and the other newly minted Númenóreans were granted a much longer lifespan than regular men. The Valar said, in effect, we're going to grant you something that's a little bit closer to the elves' serial longevity, but not quite there.
Correct.
So it seems to be a paradox that the greater lifespan that they were granted was supposed to be seen as a gift or reward, but then so too was mortality. Mm-hmm. And so it seems to me, is it any wonder that later generations of Númenóreans were confused by this?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, the mortality of men I get within the framework of the Legendarium, but why the longer lifespan? Why were they granted that?
So they could build better statues.
I like that. I think they were granted it because it's literally one of the two things that they asked for. When Thangorodrim fell and the Valar offered them, we read, and this is a deep cut. This is from the Lives of the Númenóreans chapter in the Nature of Middle-earth. So this is something that was only, brought to light in recent years. We read that long life and peace were the two things that the Edain asked for when the Valar offered them reward at the fall of Thangorodrim. Peace was readily granted, long life not so readily, and only after Manwë had consulted Eru. So even for that element, they had to get special permission to give them extended lifespan. The interesting thing, though, was that with Elros in particular, he actually didn't physically change. He could have continued. This is so interesting. I did not know this until Don and I were going through this chapter. And I'm going to go ahead and just read because I think it's easier to just share the text. He and his brother Elrond were not actually differently endowed so far as the purely physical potentiality of life was concerned. But since Elros elected to remain among the kindred of men, he retained the chief human characteristic as compared with the Quendi, the seeking elsewhither, as the Eldar called it, the weariness or desire to depart from the world. So he didn't have to, but he wanted to, right? At the end of his life, of those 500 years, which is when he resigned his life, he felt that weariness. And then we read throughout the rest of that chapter sort of like how and when that weariness set in. But the rest of the Númenóreans were physically mortal. And shortly after the weariness would kick in, they would then age at a normal pace and die of old age. It's really, really interesting that this lifespan, like you said, is sort of a double-edged sword, and it almost runs counter to the gift of men, because what it does is it creates in the Númenóreans the experience of an extended life, which really all it does is give you a desire to have even more. I mean, it definitely backfires. And
that's going to be my point. It seems like this is a really bad idea to me, it seems. And it almost seems like the Valar were screwing up there. But thanks very much for finding that, because that's actually something I have not read yet.
It's such a fascinating chapter. If you've got The Nature of Middle-earth, definitely look that up. I know The Nature of Middle-earth can be a challenge because it starts at those math-heavy chapters talking about elf lifespans and the years of the trees and everything. My brain just, I just go straight past that. I just leave that for somebody else. But I'll tell you what, the stuff that we get on the other elements, in this case, Elros's very interesting mortality, as well as the rest of how Númenóreans, look at this, was really, really fascinating. Basically, they aged like normal people until around 20, and then that aging slowed dramatically until somewhere between 350 to 400 years, and then they would go back to like a normal aging process. So you would feel that weariness, and you're like, okay, well, now my lifespan's going to be coming to an end real soon, so I'm going to step down. And that's when they would, resign from life rather than cling to life in decrepitude, as the text in that chapter tells us. But it's sort of a reward, but it's sort of not.
Yeah.
The Eldar did make it real clear, right?
I guess giving them more life maybe makes them feel a bit closer and tempted by that immortality. But I don't know. Is anyone truly ready for the end if they're in that kind of
That's fair.
mental space that the later Númenóreans are? Like you think of Ar-Pharazôn or whoever, any of those later kings, no number is going to be good enough.
True.
They'll always run out of time, which I think is one of the beautiful things of Tolkien's writings, is those early Númenóreans who just say like, okay, my time is up, and they're at peace with that. And then for Aragorn to do that later,
sort of reestablishing that.
In the Tale of Aragorn and Arwen, which I still think is some of his most beautiful writing across
Isn't it?
Everything.
Appendix
he's done.
A15, people. Go look it up if you haven't read it already.
A15.
Yeah. Great stuff. By the way, I made an error. I said that they age normally until 20. Actually, I just looked it up and I completely botched it. After about 7 years, they grew up mentally with rapidity. Mentally, right? So they physically are the same, but they grow mentally very quickly. And at 20 years, knew and understood far more than a normal human of that age. Knowing plenty of 20-year-olds, including myself, that's a low bar. A consequence of this, reinforced by their expectation of long-lasting vigor, which left them with little sense of urgency in the first half of their lives. I mean, think about it. If you're going to live to be 400 years old, you're not sweating turning 40.
Right.
It's just not a big deal. So because of that, they very often became engrossed in lore and crafts and various intellectual or artistic pursuits to a far greater degree than normal. Can you imagine being able to pursue your interests in that way for centuries? But yes, wouldn't that also lead you to want to keep doing it more?
To do it more, yeah.
It really is sort of a like, oh, this is great, but wow, it's a taste of what could be even better. Yeah, that would be hard. That would be really, really hard. They definitely were very elf-like. In that same chapter, we learned things that they, like the elves, basically got married only once. The only time you'd be permitted a second marriage is if one of the partners died young, leaving them still with a need or desire of children. But that was very rare because death basically didn't happen by sickness or mischance. People just lived until they laid down their lives due to the grace of the Valar. It's just really, really fascinating, but a tough place to be put in, that's for sure. Nakat.
So we actually had a little bit of this discussion in the Lake Town Smile, but the discussion was more around Tol Eressëa being visible from Numenor. And one of the arguments for that was that because if you are looking at them, you are going to become envious. But one of the arguments was that maybe it was more like having Mona Lisa in one of the, museums, that you are looking at it reverently. You have it in your view, but you're not possessing it.
Yes.
So in some similar way, but this argument about the lifespan and what you can achieve in that lifespan kind of trumps it. But I wonder if that can be made in the same, circle as well.
Yeah. That's an interesting one because it also brings us back to Rings of Power, doesn't it, Matt? I mean, there's that very moment where Ar-Pharazôn says to his son, you see that tower? No, I can't see it. Well, that's right. You can only see it if you're on the top of the mountain, and only those who are farsighted. The elves put it there on purpose to make us jealous, basically, is his whole deal. Like to remind us of our place, that we, are mortal, and that
it's
no
like
matter
the
what
elves
we do.
didn't put it there, by the way.
No, they didn't. It was already there before.
It's like the Numenorians just need to get over themselves.
Seriously, like seriously, man.
It's called contentment, Yeah.
Like,
they just need to practice.
And that's the thing. They were content for so long. I think it's that closeness to, it's the closeness to the Eldar. It's the respect for the Valar. And it's ultimately their reverence for Eru that helps keep them there. Because if you notice that it's at the same time that they start to get jealous, they start to have this discontent, that's also simultaneous
their lifespans.
Yeah. It's simultaneous with their cutting off or at least reducing contact with the Eldar. It eventually they stop going up the Meneltarma and doing the ceremonies on there and the Eru Kiarme, the Eru Hantale, and the Eru Laitale. And it's just one of those things where they all go hand in hand. And if you have the one, then you have the others. And by any one of those things failing, the others fail as well. And it's a really deep tragedy to see because, I mean, the downhill fall is rapid, in terms of history, even though it's not quick in terms of years because of their lifespans. Yeah. Yep. Man, Numenor, heartbreaking story. Good question, though, Lewis. Thank you. Excellent. All right, folks, we'll come back with more questions after the break. Soon we're going to get back to a few more listener questions, but before we do, we want to remind you there is a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony Podcast than just us, thankfully.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast. You can follow the page to get the news and episode releases, but really, you're going to want to join the group for some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at PrancingPonyPod.
And if you want daily Tolkien content, check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. It's my short format daily show with everything from Tolkien Tuesday to First Age Friday. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media. So, Matt, we've had some good questions. We've had first round of questions. What about second round?
Let's next go to Nakat.
Welcome, Nakat.
My question, I have written a bunch of them, but one of the questions, which I actually discussed it with Sean a little bit, and I did ask him this question, and I would want to see what you guys would respond to it. But at the same time, I was satisfied with his answer as well. But yeah, but it is an interesting one in which everyone can have a different preview, and it kind of bounces back off of Marie's question.
Okay.
So it is about that verse, "The crownless again shall be king."
Oh.
So the crownless is basically the keyword here. So when Bilbo writes this, does crownless indicate that the Númenórean kings were basically crownless? They had the scepter and, well, Elendilmir. So do you think that it has anything to do with that?
I think that's a very good insight that I had not caught, but you're absolutely right. So
my assumption was always, it's his line is of the fallen Arnor. So there's no kingdom there. There's no crown. There's no king. So I assumed that was where that line was pointing toward.
Right. But I think she raises a very good point. It's not just the kings of Númenor, it's the kings of Arnor. They also, they followed Elendil's deal and just were wearing the Elendilmir, not a crown, but just that silver fillet. Nakat, you've got something to add on this real quick before we go any further.
Yeah, actually, it has also this footnote with it where it is mentioned. And in that footnote, Tolkien has written this same thing, that the scepter was the main thing about the Númenórean kings. And then later on, it was Elendilmir. And afterwards, it became that war helm, which became the crown. So afterwards, it did become that, but traditionally, they were crownless. So this is basically where it started up in my head. So yeah,
and it's a callback to that, of course, because it's the star of Elendil, and Elendil was the High King over both realms, over Arnor and Gondor, and he himself, of course, would not have worn a crown. He was wearing the Elendilmir. Of course, that Elendilmir, folks, dated way back to the early years of Númenor, goes all the way back to Silmarillion. She was the daughter of, I think, the fourth king, Tar Elendil. And of course, had the law been different, then she would have become the first ruling queen. But this was before they gave up agnatic primogeniture for straight primogeniture. And so at that point,
look at that vocabulary.
Well, it's all the time I've been spending in Númenor and all of that stuff lately. I mean, you dive into the appendices and the next thing you know, you're rattling off terms like that.
Yeah, that was good, man.
She, of course, was given the original Elendilmir. And so it passed. She was the foremother, if you will, of the Lords of Andúnier. So that's the line that Elendil was from. Therefore, it's the line that the kings of Arnor and Gondor were from. But yeah, absolutely. In the north, it was always the Elendilmir. In the south, it was the helm, the plain Númenorian war helm, the one worn by Númenorian kings in the Battle of Dagorlad. Honorian's was, of course, crushed, but it was it was modeled after that. The war helm of Isildur was used for the crowning of the kings of Gondor. So that, of course, changed in, certainly not going to give you a year, but if you remember, Matt, there was one of the lazy kings. I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head. It's the one who, in his time, precious stones were like pebbles for the kids of Gondor to play with. Remember? Atanatar, I think it was. Alcaran, Atanatar Alcaran, the glorious is what Alcaran means. And he made this fancy jeweled helm that ended up serving as the helm of Gondor for the rest of the time. And that's the one that Tolkien himself drew in a letter where he talked about how it was sort of Egyptian with this tall thing and the jewel at the top and the wings coming out to the side.
That was Atanatar the Second.
Yeah, Atanatar the Second. Yeah, I missed that. I missed the second. Yes.
That's okay. I looked it up. I didn't know it off the top of my head. So
well, I remember it from when we went through the Steward and the King at the end of that episode, or at the end of that chapter when Aragorn receives the crown. Yeah. I did a little sidebar on the crown and the history of the crown. But Nakat, that's a very interesting one. I never had thought about that perspective. And I love that about these words. The crownless again shall be king could easily just be the guy who isn't king is going to become king. Right. That's the simple on its face explanation. But wow, I like that deeper cut. And it's so Tolkien-esque to do that. It kind of makes me think of Glorfindel's prophecy, not by the hand of man shall he fall. Like, well, do you mean by the race of man or by a male?
Yes.
Yes. I love it.
Sean allowed me to entertain this as a headcanon, and I am doing that now. So, yeah.
I think I will as well. That fits and it's glorious because I love the reference to Elendil's line, because really, in a way, the more you study the appendices, the more you realize how the southern line really kind of lost its way eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't go bad like Númenor, but there were a lot of just not so.
I mean, the Kinstrife is pretty bad.
Kinstrife's awful.
It gets pretty rough.
It's really terrible. I mean, but there's just so much there that even before that, you've got these lazy kings and then, yeah, it's a reminder that the Northern Line is not bereft of honor or bereft of lordship, as Denethor accused it of being.
Such a great phrase, though, bereft
Isn't
of
it?
lordship. Like, we don't use bereft enough,
Yeah. I mean, again, the North Kingdom had its own issues, splitting up early, and becoming 3 splinter kingdoms. I want to know more about that. That's not a question that's on the table for tonight, but I still want to know exactly what the cause of that split was. Those 3 sons of, I believe it was Eärendil, who then, split the kingdom.
I've always imagined it like, it had the potential to turn into, if you've ever seen the Kurosawa film Ran.
I have not, but I've heard of it.
Okay. I've seen a lot of heads nodding, which is great because
that is good.
There's actually some imagery. Fun fact, Alan, there's some imagery in that you can pick up in Peter Jackson's films.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some visuals of things like the elves retreating at Helm's Deep is very reminiscent of these soldiers who have like these flags on the back, and it's kind of like the elves with the arrows. So there you go.
I'm going to have to watch that. Very good stuff. That was a great question, Nakat. Thank you. And I hope we lived up to Sean's answer of it as well. All right. Well, Matt, who do we have up next?
Next up, we have Erica.
Erica, welcome.
Thank you. My question was more of a thought that hit me one night about the 3 rings of the elves and the 3 Silmarillions. Okay.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
3 rings of the elves are fire, water, and air, and just how the Silmarils, one went up into the air, one water, and one says earth, but into fire. Was it intentional that way, or do you think, or something the elves just have something about earth, wind, and fire?
Now I want to sing some Earth, Wind, and Fire hits. Matt, you ready to sing some R&B here?
I'm trying to think what songs. I know I've actually heard of that group before you make any jokes about me not knowing stuff.
My goodness. My God.
I can't think of any of their songs off the top of my head, though.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to you.
Oh, they sing September?
September, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard them. I grew up on oldies, actually, a bit. But Earth, Wind, and Fire wasn't one of the big ones.
They did Boogie Wonderland. They did Shining Star.
See, I wasn't into like the disco stuff.
No, neither was I. That was not my genre. But
okay, sure. I've seen the pictures. No, Alan doesn't want people to see. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I was definitely more new wave, sort of mid '80s, early '80s, rather than sort of that disco era in the 70s. I'm not quite in love for disco. Anyway, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Earth, Air, and Fire. I like that because I don't think Tolkien was trying to connect it to the band since they weren't around. Matt, that was a pretty obvious connection, don't you think? That's not an accident.
Yeah. I think that was absolutely intentional. Yeah,
we have any evidence to support that it's intentional other than just the fact that Tolkien very rarely did things by accident?
Yeah, I don't. That's what I was just trying to look up because I've seen that point made online many times, and I think I even brought it up in my video on the 3 elven rings. So if it's accidental, it's definitely a happy accident and one that's very, very fitting.
Well, I believe that when he was originally working through the rings, one of them was going to be Earth. I can't remember the name of it. And I think that's the one that ended up becoming air. So I think they were originally water, fire, and earth.
Interesting.
All right. Well, before I give you maybe a deep dive that might change that up a little bit, Marie, you've got something you want to add.
Yeah, I'm Catholic, and so I do daily mass readings and daily psalms, and earth, sea, and sky are referenced a lot in the psalms and hymns and things like that. So I think he was definitely steeped in that as well. Not that it was a direct influence, but obviously
as
that's
he would say,
part of the leaf mold.
Exactly. Part of the leaf mold of the mind. No doubt about that. Thank you, Marie. I do know that in an early version, Tolkien was looking at different names for the rings. And those names were Menel, Ar, and please don't laugh if you watch The Rings of Power, Kemen. So
What?
Menel,
I did not know that. That's
yeah.
funny.
So Menel, of course, you probably know that name from like Menel Tarma or Meneldil.
Yeah.
You know, it's the region of the sky above the atmosphere. It's basically the firmament or the heavens, right? So it's the sky. So that's going to connect perhaps to the ring of air. Then we get Aar, which means sea, right? You know that from Eärendil, Eärnur, Eärwen, all of those. So that's going to be the ring of water. It's the ring of fire that changed, because the ring of fire was not originally imaged. The third name of the elven rings, or the name of the third elven ring, was Kemen, which is a Quenya word meaning earth, in the sense of a floor beneath the heavens. So, and we know that the only other place you can find that root is in Kementari. It's not a very common element, but that, of course, is one of the other names for Yavanna. And, of course, that name means queen of the earth, Kementari. So, earth. So it's interesting that it was originally going to be air, water, and earth, and it became air, water, and fire. And I guess in a way that almost confirms that it is an echo of the Silmarils, because it's that third Silmaril. I mean, one ends up in the sky, right? Eärendil. One ends up in the water, hurled in there, or thrown in, hurled into the ocean, into the Great Sea. And then the third one goes into the earth, but it's into fire. It's into a chasm. So it goes either way. And I think that alone, to me at least, would suggest this isn't an accident. What do you think, Matt? Besides the name of Kemen as name of a ring.
Yeah, that is interesting that I did not know that tidbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a certain poetic nature to that. You know,
Yeah.
3 Silmarils, 3 rings,
Mm-hmm.
forged by Feanor and then forged by Celebrimbor.
His grandson.
It seems like something that is probably not an accident to me.
I do like that he changed the last one though from earth to fire. And I wonder, there's no evidence to say when exactly he changed it, but I wonder if it was sort of as he got the idea that ring was going to be used to kindle hearts. And so he changed it from an element of earth to an element of fire.
That would
certainly make sense.
Yeah.
It's a good question though, Erica. And definitely, the connection between the Silmarils and the rings is pretty strong, even though if it isn't explicit. All right, Matt, who do we have up still here in round 1?
Next up, we have Jenny.
Jenny.
Well, thank you. Yes. From all that interesting stuff, I want to go to something very boring. In fact, the most boring character in the whole Legendarium for me is Celeborn. And I want to know, the only interesting thing about him, of course, being the fact that his name is really Teleporno.
He's so boring that Amazon decided not to include him in their show. All right.
Lord Almighty.
But my question is, why does Tolkien have him around? I mean, is it because of where Tolkien is socially and where he's writing from? He cannot imagine a ruling queen, Galadriel, without a man at her side. Or is that too negative towards Tolkien, although, of course, he is a product of his time? I think it's Galadriel, in fact, who calls Celeborn the Wise. It should be ironic.
It is a little ironic since he does give us some wisdom. There's no doubt about that. But
what would you say the wisdom of Celeborn?
Okay, well, let's talk about Celeborn, Matt.
Yeah.
I think it is a fair question to ask. I will say that the idea of ruling queens is certainly something that Tolkien would not have had a problem with. I think we talked about the ruling queens of Numenor, and certainly the implication from Tolkien that Silmarillion ought to have been become a ruling queen. We've got those queens, and then we have, other. I'm trying to think do we have any of them that rule on their own? I mean, certainly Melian doesn't rule on her own. She's got Thingol. Luthien has Beren. So I mean, it does seem that there's a natural pairing, but that natural pairing also goes the other way. I can't think of any, other than Finrod, who is notoriously a bachelor for good reason. I can't think of any kings off the top of my head who don't have a queen. Yeah. Again, some of them for good reason. Yeah. I mean, Theoden doesn't have his queen anymore. She died in childbirth, things like that.
Right. Yeah.
But you don't see a lot of single men becoming kings and remaining single in Tolkien any more than you would see a ruling queen without a king. So I don't know that that's an element, but she does seem to outshine him.
Yeah. Marie brought up Haleth.
Haleth is I love Haleth.
So she's
yeah, and certainly she ruled without a husband for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So when it comes to Celeborn, I feel like I have to stick up for Celeborn quite a lot because I think he gets a bad rap partially because of the movies and because he's overshadowed.
Hard to not be overshadowed when you're married to Galadriel.
When you're married to Galadriel. I like that they're not king and queen, that they're lord and lady. Like it's a unadapted and like underappreciated element of their story that Galadriel's whole thing is she wants to like rule her own realm, you know, and have her own queendom or kingdom. And then like when it comes time where she could, she doesn't. And she sticks with being lord and lady, like she actually has grown enough to where she can make that decision. But yeah, I mean, Celeborn does some stuff. It's not like he's not among the great, he's probably not going to be anybody's favorite, right? But we know
who's your favorite Third Age elf? Nobody's going to say Celeborn.
Nobody's going to say Celeborn. But that being said, he was involved in the sack of Eregion, and there was some.
To be clear, he didn't actually sack Eregion. He was involved in the fight to prevent said sack, and then helped Elrond.
I mean, it didn't go well, but
but he helped lead the refugees out, and
So I don't know. I think he gets a bad rap a lot of times.
He does a little bit. I think. The wisdom bit. That is an interesting thing. I mean, he does have some wisdom. He does give some good advice to the company, especially in the books. In the movies, he's very much second fiddle. Really, unfortunately, in a very sad way. But let's not forget that he was also directly involved in leading the forces of the Galadhrim across the Anduin and taking Dol Guldur, at the end of the War of the Ring. So, I just feel like he does get sort of a bad rap thanks to the films in many ways.
Yeah. That is one thing I would love to see adapted someday, or like whether it's animation or whatever. Like imagine Galadriel and Celeborn fighting side by side against Dol Guldur.
Wouldn't that
be
amazing?
How fun that would be.
That would have been fun to see. Yeah, 100%.
I also like that, I don't like it, but it's a nice storytelling. The fact that the reason he doesn't go with Galadriel to Lorien and escape Eregion is because he doesn't like dwarves.
Yeah, he doesn't like is a mild way of putting it. Yeah,
I'll stick around in Eregion, which is like,
if we could build a toll road over the mountains where I can avoid the dwarves, I'll pay that toll, but I am not going through there. Not those stinky dwarves. All right, Marie, you've got something to say on this, and then Jenny as well.
Yeah, I posted it in the chat, but in some ways, Celeborn is the anti-Thingol because he's humble. He's also willing to listen to Galadriel. Yeah, instead of our poor Cassandra Melian, who nobody listens to. And
maybe that's why she calls him the wise.
Yeah, exactly. And he's measured. He's not haughty other than to the dwarves, but he realizes when, as Jerry points out, that Galadriel says, hey, well, if ours was in a boat of dragons, would not one of us want to come by Lorien, even if it was? So I think,
and he apologizes.
He does, which is not something you expect.
He's like, my bad, You
certainly can't expect that from Thingol. I mean, get away from me, you stunted people.
Yeah. So
and then he just bleeds to death from shin cuts.
Yeah. So I think he's sort of a mirror of what Thingol could have been.
Thingol as he should have been.
Yeah.
Really, in a way, you're absolutely right. I love that comparison because he does listen to Galadriel. She is wise. And because she's not saying it sarcastically, she's not saying it the way we sort of snidely say it. She means it. So if Galadriel herself says Celeborn is wise, I'm taking that at face value, even if we don't get actual examples of his wisdom. She's known him a long time and can make that claim. All right. Jenny, what do you have to say?
I just wanted to thank you all. I think those are very important things you all had to say, and really rehabilitates Celeborn in my eyes. Thank you.
Good.
But in terms of the attitude of Middle Earth itself to Lothlorien, it's always the lady in the wood, the magical lady in the wood, and you never hear about the wise elf lord in the wood,
I think it's her magic that terrifies people.
I think it is, yes. Yeah. But that's not to say that he wasn't a wise lord, but that he's just not known as that in Middle Earth.
Correct. Yeah, his is not the reputation that spreads abroad. Hers is. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that was a good question, Jenny. Matt, we still have a few more in the first round, I think.
We do. Next up, I believe, is Diane.
Diane, welcome back.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Good.
Well, so the other day I was driving and somebody cut me off and I said a few colorful things to the other person, in my head.
Were they in black speech? Because that's a great language to curse in.
I wish I had a few words for that. But it got me thinking, insults are very culturally kind of grounded. So what kind of insults do you think, like hobbits, men, your dwarves, elves, what would they yell when somebody's like donkey gets in front of them in line and they're all pissed off?
Oh, Diane, this is going to be fun. I have no idea what the answer is going to be, but wow. We're going to have fun coming up with it. Matt, I guess we could start with hobbits because I sort of get a feeling like we might be able to guess on them first. They can be pretty sarcastic and snarky and
yeah. See, I always think of the insult that Gimli says in the films that he says, is it to Haldir maybe when they, which is like Ishkakwi Durugnul or something.
Ooh, I love that you're using actual. That's great. That's good stuff.
It's something like I spit on your grave or so it's something to that effect. And then Thorin says a variation of it in the Hobbit films.
Oh yeah,
and I think it says it has like defecation in it or something like that. I can't remember.
Surprised.
Yeah, I should try to look it up. But
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the elves don't bother with a lot of insults to the other races. They just name them insulting names. I mean, the dwarves are the Naugrim, the stunted people. We are the aftercomers, the usurpers. We're just like, we're nothing, man. So the elves don't need to insult us. They've already given us the insult by giving us our name, the aftercomers. I mean, just, nothing we get is good from the elves. Oh man, so many. I think the dwarves would probably be the most skilled at it. I feel.
Yeah. I feel like it's pretty on brand. Okay, so one of the insults that Thorin says in the film is Imrid Amran Ursul, which is may you die in dragon fire. So that's pretty good.
Let's see. Well, Gollum just says things like stupid fat hobbit. I mean, so he's pretty simple in his insults. He's not going to get, really, really complicated.
I feel like Gandalf is probably going to be
just going to call people
witty.
Fools.
Well, yeah, there's that.
But yeah, dwarves, I just feel like they would do it. I mean, I'm thinking of Rings of Power and the playful relationship between Durin and Elrond, and he throws some insults his way. You title-haired something or other, and even Elrond's like, "What? What was that about?" What did Gimli calls Legolas? What a pointy-eared elvish princeling or something like that.
Oh yeah. But
yeah, I think with Gandalf, he might be the individual master. If dwarves are the master race of insulters, Gandalf would be like the king. I mean, my problem is I'm thinking only of ones from the movies. I'm having a real hard time recalling ones from the books. I mean, you need people of intelligence on this sort of mission, quest, thing. That rules you out, Pip. I mean, it's a great line. It's just not from the books. I think Hobbit ones might be sophisticated. I think we're all still trying to work out if I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve. I mean, the text even tells us people are trying to work out if it's an insult or not.
Yeah. See, I like some of my favorite, I guess you could call them insults, but are all of Bilbo's gifts that he leaves to people.
Oh my goodness, those are so sharp. I love that.
So good.
Oh,
yeah.
the mirror because she so obviously loves to look in mirrors. Or,
right. The person who sent so many unsolicited letters to him, and he gives her a trash can. Like, it's so
the
good.
bookshelf for the guy who kept borrowing books.
Yes.
I mean, those are brilliant. They're so sharp. I absolutely love it.
And that's part of the reason why Bilbo is my favorite Hobbit, by the way.
Yeah. Sam's dad, the gaffer, insults Sam all the time, right? It calls him a ninny hammer. Basically questions his value every day. Orcs would be good at it too. What was that one? You may well put your thinking cap on if you've got one. I don't know if Shagrat says that to Gorbag or Gorbag says that to Shagrat, but it's back in that conversation they have near the pass of Cirith Ungol. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. My goodness, this is tough. I'm trying to think. The trolls would have been very good at it. I can't remember what they said. I'm thinking of insults that are like more sophisticated, like Feanor calling Melkor Jail Crow of Mandos.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that line.
Get thee gone.
Get thee gone, thou Jail Crow of Mandos. But I mean, a lot of his stuff, he didn't insult them to their face because he left them behind, but he calls the rest of his own kin, of whom he's supposedly king, needless baggage on the road. I mean, the guy's got some good ones. What did Theoden say? Gibbets and crows, right? Oh, Saruman. What is the House of Eorl but a thatched barn where the kids and the dogs roll around in the reek? I mean, or they drink in the reek and the brats roll on the floor among the dogs or something like that. So Bilbo insulted the spiders, right? Addercop, I think, was basically calling them like a dumbhead or something like that, or poisonhead or something. Okay, I remember this one now. I remember there was Yorith would not shut up. I love that lady. I do. I love her to death. She's one of my favorite underrated characters. But she wouldn't shut up. And Aragorn's like, if you love Faramir, run as quick as your tongue and get me the king's foil. Oh, man. That's some really, really good stuff.
Oh, my favorite, all-time favorite is, Aragorn.
Oh, is this first edition Lord of the Rings?
Is it about Butterbur?
No. Oh, yes, the fat innkeeper who only remembers his name because people shouted at him
all day. Yes.
That's a great one.
It's my favorite. I can't believe I didn't think of that. It is my absolute favorite. Yes.
That is such a good one. I absolutely love that one. That is so Barlow and Butterbur.
Because he's like, he's trash talking Strider, and not realizing he's in the room. He just comes in,
I'm right here.
Drops the hammer.
He really does. He really does. What was the Aragorn first edition one that I was, when you mentioned Aragorn, it brought me back to the first edition, and there was a line in there where Gimli's pestering Aragorn about the Palantir and communicating somehow with Sauron. And he says, what do you want me to tell him? That I have a perfectly serviceable dwarf? Or no, that I have a rascally rebel of a dwarf that I would trade for a perfectly serviceable orc?
Yeah.
I mean,
forgot about that. Yeah.
He's harsh, man. I love it. Oh, Gandalf says something to Legolas when they're in the Pass of Caradhras. Something about basically if elves could fly, you could fly over these mountains and grab the sun. Shut up, man. Help us solve the problem. Oh, there were some really, really good ones.
That's pretty good.
Those are good run though. I mean, we're doing better than I thought we would.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you got Fool of a Took and, throw yourself in next time and that kind of stuff. But I guess Gandalf is just harsh. Oh, what's the one where Gandalf basically puts everyone down? I was talking aloud to myself. Something about how this is what old people do. They pick the wisest person around to speak to.
Yeah.
So he was talking to himself. I mean, Gandalf just rocks.
Is that in The Hobbit or is that in Lord of the Rings?
That sounds like a Hobbit quote if I'm trying to remember it.
It does. Because I remember, so he says a variation of that in the films.
Yeah.
Where he says, and I don't think it's the same version as in the books, but in the films he says, Bilbo asks him where he's going. He says to seek the counsel of the, and then.
But that's I'm trying to remember where it was in the books though. And I'm now all of a sudden I'm not sure. You got me. I'm going to have to do a word search in one of my ebooks and see if I could. Wisest person I know for sure is in there. So let me see if I can find that. Oh, it is in Lord of the Rings. It's in chapter 5, The White Rider. In one thing you have not changed, dear friend, said Aragorn, you still speak in riddles. What? In riddles, said Gandalf. No, for I was talking aloud to myself. A habit of the old. They choose the wisest person present to speak to. The long explanations needed by the young are wearying. I will now remember that for all my co-hosts who give me old man jokes. The long explanations needed by the young are wearying indeed.
You'll want to hang on to that for the next few weeks.
For the next 10 weeks, I know, seriously. Yeah, there's some good ones. I mean, Craven. I can't remember who all calls people Craven, but it's basically calling people a coward. I know Feanor calls Morgoth that. I think Fingolfin does, or maybe it's just when he knocks on the door, he doesn't want to be called Craven, so he comes. But there are just
baseborn mortal.
Oh,
right?
Baseborn mortal. Yes. Thingol definitely puts the smackdown on Beren. Yeah. No doubt about it. Some fun ones. Yeah. I did find one real quickly. I was just glancing, trying to find some, and I found one online that doesn't sound like an insult at first, but it was when Lobelia came to Bag End to show up and at the end before Frodo leaves Bag End early, before she's supposed to arrive. And we get the short sentence, Frodo did not offer her any tea. Which, if you know any Englishman, is a grave insult. So really, really enjoy that. That was a fun question, Diane. Oh, that was a blast.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right, Matt, who do we still have?
Next up, we have Jerry.
Oh, Jerry. Welcome back.
Thank you. So you've mentioned the Númenórean law of succession, which Eldarion changed that made it so that the firstborn will automatically become the heir, whether a son or daughter. So considering that was the law of the land for about 2,500 years,
yeah,
and since we see in the annals of Arnor, Arthedain, and Gondor that there's not a single female ruler, why do you think the realms in exile did not continue with that legal tradition when they became the realms in exile?
That's a very good question. It's actually something that I recently talked about in an episode that you will not have heard yet because it has not been released. But when we were talking about specifically Arvedwi's claim to the throne, right? One of his claims was, not only am I an heir of Isildur, but I am married to the daughter of the only surviving child of Ondahare, because Ondahare and his sons were killed in battle with the Wainriders. And their response is that we only draw the line through the men. Now, Arvedwi argues that, but we never get Gondor's response. We never, Arvedwi makes that claim based on those two reasons, and the claim was rejected, and the council said that the crown and royalty of Gondor belongs solely to the heirs of Meneldil. So they're saying basically, doesn't matter that you're the son of Isildur or a descendant of Isildur, that's really irrelevant. And then in Gondor, this heritage is reckoned through the sons only, and we have not heard that the law is otherwise in Arnor. Now, Arvedwi says something here that doesn't tell us the why, but it certainly confirms what you suggested in your question. He says that we've heard the name of Elendil stands to this day at the head of the lines of kings, so he's trying to make the argument that, a son of Isildur is at least as valid as a son of Anarion. But then he says, moreover, in Númenor of old, the scepter descended to the eldest child of the king. So there's the reference to the strict primogeniture law that the eldest child would get it, whether man or woman. Then he writes this, it is true that the law has not been observed in the lands of exile, ever troubled by war. But such was the law of our people, to which we now refer, seeing that the sons of Ondahare died childless. So somehow, some way, for some reason, both realms in exile seemed not to follow that. Matt, do we want to hazard a guess as to why? Could it have just been that Elendil had the two sons? I mean, if he'd had an elder daughter, maybe one of those becomes a ruling queen of either Arnor or Gondor, but they just held with what they had? What do you think? And then, Jerry, we'll come back to you and see what you think as well.
Yeah, I have no idea. We're in pure speculation mode here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that kind of is what this is, because we're never given a reason. We're hinted at one. Arvedwi says, ever troubled by war.
Yeah.
And remember, Númenor, being an island kingdom, not being under siege, under attack, would not have had to have, shall we say, warrior kings. While both Gondor and Arnor would have needed warrior kings.
So could it be a warrior king kind of thing? Like
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I mean, when the minute they show up, they're on hostile territory. All right, I mean, they show up and they're immediately under attack by Sauron, and they form the alliance with Gil-galad. They defeat Sauron. Okay, now what? But they're still having to subdue and maintain their boundaries, their borders. There's already going to be conflict with Umbar, with up north, with the wild men that end up taking over Rhudaur, because that's the first of those three Splendor Kingdoms to fall, and we find out there's wild men that are allied with Angmar. So yeah, I mean, I tend to think that if there is a reason, that reason would be a tendency to have a desire for warrior kings, for those who could lead men in battle. Not that the women couldn't, but they were not proven to do so. And I think the default at that point is to fall sort of that to tradition, even if it's not
historically speaking. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Of course, that's something that Tolkien would have been familiar with too. I mean, just, male preference primogeniture would have been something that he would have been familiar with historically, not just in his own culture, but in all the cultures that he studied. So, Jerry, what do you have to say?
Well, it just occurred to me, I wonder if it has anything to do with them being descendants of the Lords of Andúnier, whom we don't have any evidence that there is that tradition. Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good possibility as well. I mean, the Lords of Andúnier, I'm trying to think whether there's any evidence that that line went through the women in any way other than with the beginning with Silmarillion.
The start, yeah.
I believe it does say at some point that the Lords of Andúnier have always been a close counselor to the king. It's not lords or ladies.
Yeah. All right. So looking it up, of course, we don't get a list of all the names of the Lords of Andúnier. We get Valandil, the first, who is, of course, Silmarillion's son. But we don't get another one until we get to Eärendil, who is the 15th. And then we also don't know the 16th, but then it's Numendil and then Amandil, who disappeared, sailing west trying to pull a Eärendil, but not quite getting that opportunity.
Couldn't do it.
And then we get Elendil himself. So, yeah, it does seem like it's a lordship. Therefore, it's going to be descended to, the eldest son. That would make sense then. That would make sense because they're all going to be descended from that line. So maybe a combination of that plus the hint given to us by Arvedwi about the times of war. Yeah. It's interesting. Because you're right. I mean, Numenor had that law for so long. We wondered about that as well. Don and I were talking about that. It seems so odd that they would just dismiss Arvedwi's claim. But of course, they never even got back to him on that. That was Arvedwi saying, per my last email, but I still have the validity of this claim. It needs to be appealed.
They ghosted him.
They ghosted him. They put him on read, man. So that was, of course, Pelendur, the steward at the time. Interestingly, total sidebar, we read in, and now I'm not going to be able to remember exactly where we read it. I think it's in one of the drafts of the section on the stewards, that not only do they harden their hearts, but they basically decided from that time on that they were not going to accept the claim of anybody from the line of Isildur. Flat out, they were going to rule Gondor as kings, just without that title. Like they locked it in, once it was a hereditary title, once it became part of the house of Hurin of Emin Arnon. But anyway, listen to earlier episodes for that, because it's funny, we're recording this now, but those episodes will be out by the time this is out, but are not out by the time we're recording this. All right. That craziness aside, let's go ahead and take a second break. We'll come back and see what we have for a second round. Folks, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the PPP by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast. It's what gives me the ability to work on making this show better every year and hopefully better every episode. When you join, you get the best Discord community around, and that includes live episode recordings and hangouts every month. You also get episode postscripts, ad-free episodes, free merch, and more.
You also can become part of our Questions After Nightfall episodes, or even join us as a guest in the North Wing. So please go to patreon.com/prancingponypod, to show your support and join the Fellowship of the Podcast.
And you can always help us out by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and a rating on Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends. All right, Matt, who do we have for the second round?
We've got Sam leading things off.
Sam, welcome back.
Long time no talk.
All of 20 minutes. What do you have?
So I don't know if you guys have talked about it on some of the unreleased episodes yet, but have you guys speculated at all about the recently announced other Lord of the Rings movie that they're going to be working on besides The Hunt for Gollum?
No, we really haven't, primarily because we know so little of it. But boy, this is a perfect chance to do that. Matt, what are you thinking they're going to cover? Do we have any actual clues other than possibly Gandalf would be involved because Ian McKellen's been approached to do 2 films?
No, that's literally the only clue that we have.
That's kind of what I thought.
Ian McKellen would be involved. So we have about 2,000 years of history to deal with. Somewhere in those 2,000 years.
Somewhere between Third Age 1000 and the end of the Third Age.
Right.
Gandalf's involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you right now what story I would love to see, and that is the story of Thorongil. I would really love to see his adventures in Rohan and Gondor, the early stages of the rivalry with a young Denethor would be amazing. The defeat of Corsairs, going and leading that raid.
Having a sea battle would be amazing.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And meeting a young Arwen, well, she'd still be old.
Right.
But a youngish Arwen.
No, there's part of me that hopes that that's an element of Hunt for Gollum, honestly.
I know, I do too. Yeah.
Like I don't think Hunt for Gollum is necessarily because they're still writing the story, like coming up with the story.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a lock for that's the only focus of that film. I would 100% be in favor of like, you know what? Let's make this a young Aragorn film.
Yeah. I think Thorongil would be exciting. And of course you could lead in with a actually young Aragorn, like him as a child, and finding out his name and all of that. That'd be fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Man, it would have to be bigger probably than a single film. But man, I would love Angmar War at some point.
Oh, but would Gandalf be involved? I mean, see, that's the thing. At least
that's the thing. Like
connections with Gandalf and the Thorongil story because Denethor thinks they're plotting against him.
Right. And it would, like Hunt for Gollum makes sense because Gandalf sets him on that journey.
The War in the North would be glorious, I admit.
Yes, I think War in the North is probably my
watching
favorite.
the arrival of Gondor and the fight and Glorfindel and that would be good stuff. I mean, there are other things that I want to see covered, but for example, the story of the Kinstrife would be a fantastic film, but Gandalf's not involved, so that won't be it.
Yeah, no.
I'm just trying to think of anything that Gandalf was involved in.
Anything else, I think it's the only other things that I can come up with all involve him as just like a cameo, honestly.
Yeah. What about any of the White Council stuff? I mean, it's really, aside from their decision to attack Dol Guldur, there's not a lot of action.
Yeah, they kind of covered that in the
Hobbit
films. I tell you what, I would really like to see as a War in the North film.
Yeah, War in the North would be good.
Like with Erebor and with Lorien and Dol Guldur. Like
not in the North, not Angmar.
No, not Angmar War. I'm talking.
So you're talking about like end of the Third Age, Galadriel and Celeborn leading the Galadrim against.
Yeah, like I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
of them leading an attack and like the dwarves and the men of Dale
and Dain standing at the gate defending it with his last breath. Oh, that would be glorious, wouldn't it? That would.
And it would tie. Like the interesting thing is it ties to the existing films, like obviously the timeline of Lord of the Rings, but like we met a lot of those characters that are involved in the story in the Hobbit movies. So
true.
It could, you
could even bring Thranduil in somehow. You could have because remember because Celeborn meets with Thranduil, talking about Aaron Lescala and talking about changing the name of Mirkwood and all of that.
Yeah, Galadriel tears down Dol Guldur.
Yeah,
essentially at the
rips
end,
the walls down with her magic.
Yeah, like
which is very Luthien, right? I mean,
yes, it's very Tolkien Galroth.
Yeah,
could you imagine Cate Blanchett doing that? How legit that would be.
Nuclear Galadriel unleashed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I agree. That would be a really, really good story. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, you could have maybe early days in the Shire with Gandalf and, the establishment of the Shire and Gandalf coming and, kind of starting relationships there. And we could see some early Shire stuff, but that would have to be like a side plot because there's not a lot of story there.
Right.
Unless you wanted to do a whole movie about the unit of special forces archers that they sent to the battle in Angmar. And we just follow them the entire time. And it's sort of like the Dirty Dozen, but they're hobbits.
Right.
I mean, that could be a really fun movie.
Yeah. Or a show. It's like a Band of Brothers miniseries, but it's hobbits traipsing through area.
Who, of course, actually, in my opinion, never made it to the battle. They stopped in Bree for some drinks and never went home. They're like, I don't want to go die against the Witch King.
They told everybody when they got back, like, oh, yeah, it was epic, man. You wouldn't believe it.
You should have seen it, man. We shot at that Witch King guy. Yeah, you couldn't miss him. He was 7 foot tall. Oh, yeah, that would be a fun story. But no, I'd like to think that the most likely thing is the young Aragorn story. There's been a lot of buzz on that. I remember even when Amazon first got the rights to make a TV show, there was a lot of speculation it would be a young Aragorn series.
Allegedly, that was one of the pitches that they heard.
Which they rejected. Yeah. Kind of glad they did. I mean, I may not be a huge fan of everything they've put together in the show that they've got, but I'm glad they didn't sort of tread more familiar ground.
Yeah,
kudos to them at least for trying that.
Yeah, that's true. At least
we'll discuss more of that on the Rings of Power wrap-up show. So.
Right.
All right, Matt. We've got time for a few more here in the second round.
Okay, we've got Marie next.
Marie.
Okay, so this should be a fairly easy one. How much do you think the Elfstone helped Aragorn in the Houses of Healing?
Ooh. Quite a bit. I mean, it had some power, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the Elessar.
Well, I think this depends too on like, is there one Elfstone or are there two?
Well, that's the thing, right? We do have multiple versions, right? We do have the idea of the original one, the one that I sort of think of as the more likely story is that it was made in Gondolin by either Celebrimbor or by that other jewelsmith whose name escapes me. And that, eventually it was given to Idril, saved from the fall of Gondolin. She passed it to Eärendil, and that's where he used it to heal men and elves and even beasts that lived there, if I remember correctly. And then he carried it with him over to Valinor, and then it was apparently sent back with Gandalf. He brought it back.
Yeah, that's kind of I kind of like that version. That's fun.
And so he gave it to Galadriel and said, basically, you're only going to get to hold this for a little while before you pass it to somebody else. And then that'll also be his name. So I love that story a lot more than the idea that Celebrimbor had some mad crush on Galadriel and remade a second version of it. I'm not a big fan of that one. But either way, even that one, it had less power than the original, but it didn't have no power.
Right. Oh,
These things definitely, whether we're talking about the original or the copy, if there ever was a copy, whatever the origins, it had some definite power combined with, again, maybe if I'm going to draw a parallel, I'm going to draw a parallel to the Elven Rings and how they simply enhanced existing abilities already. And they serve as an amplifier of whatever. Right. Even the One Ring serves as a massive amplifier. If you're a bad guy, it turns you into a really, really horrible guy. Sadly, it doesn't turn good into better, but it amplifies the bad. But the Elven Rings amplify the good. And I think the analogy can be drawn that the Elfstone just simply amplifies Aragorn's natural healing abilities because of his descent from the line of Luthien. That would be my way of thinking about it. I don't know that there's an answer to it. That's the only challenge. What do you think, Matt?
It's interesting, because we do get the hands of the king or the hands of the healer. So there's and we see Aragorn prior to getting the Elfstone that he's got abilities in that. Yeah, he's got some skill there. Right. So yeah, I think I'd co-sign on that that it enhances, and it probably came in handy when dealing with the Black Breath.
That makes sense. That it would have maybe given him the ability to do more healing than he would have otherwise.
Maybe it helped cut down the rehab time.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe they didn't have to spend as long in the House of Healing as they would have otherwise.
Oh, he didn't use the Elfstone on you? You're going to be here like a month.
Oh, yeah. You're in here.
It's going to be a long
man.
recovery.
Yeah.
Possibly. I also think there's an element of prophecy in there, right? I mean, that is his name. The Elfstone is his name. And it's also part of his very identity as a healer. Because, of course, Gondor hasn't had a healing king in, 1,000 years. Not that we, by the way, interestingly enough, ever get a description or a story of any of the kings of Gondor being healers. We never read about that. Even through the whole line of kings, there's never a mention of any of them being healers. But of course, they are all descended from Luthien, just as Aragorn is. So they would theoretically have that ability. Marie.
The hands of the king are hands of a healer, obviously, is a throwback to that medieval concept that the healing touch of the king. But my sense was the Elfstone was more about renewing the environment and not so much about healing people, because it's described as sunlight through green leaves.
That is how Galadriel used it, certainly, huh? And there's some possibility there, too. I mean, I was thinking of how it was originally used at the mouths of Sirion, where it was used to heal people. And that was sort of my thinking. Yeah. But that's a very good point, because Galadriel used it more in the way of healing and preserving the environment, a thing that Aragorn then set out to do as well. So it might have served a dual purpose in that regard, the ability to do both.
Yeah, because I think it's in Unfinished Tales, isn't it, where it's used to heal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Unfinished Tales, the story about him receiving it from his mother Idril and using it to heal people at the mouths of Sirion.
Yeah,
I love that story because of the totally unrelated to the question sidebar of the tradition we get from the laws and customs of the Eldar, that the mother of the bride gives a gift to the groom.
Yeah.
And that, of course, with Celebrian being gone and not being able to give Aragorn a gift, this gift from Galadriel not only fulfills prophecy, but fulfills that role of a wedding gift. It's fantastic. I mean, it's one of those super deep cuts that if you don't know about that, nothing in the movies or even the Lord of the Rings text will give you that clue. You just have to know that little bit from Laws and Customs of the Eldar, and it's like, oh, that's cool. But that's one of those things that Tolkien does. He just ties in all these deep things and weaves it all together just masterfully. So, good question. All right, Matt, I think we have time for maybe two more. Who do we have up next?
We've got Jerry up next.
Jerry, what do you got?
All right. Well, I read something on social media today, a theory I hadn't heard of before, and I don't necessarily believe it, but I wanted to hear your take. I think it's pretty interesting. So at the end of the Second Age, with the downfall of Numenor, when Ilúvatar reshaped the world, made it into a sphere, their theory was that everyone experiences the world as a sphere except elves, who still experience it flat. Hence the straight way to Valinor. But the only thing I can think of in support of that is that would solve Legolas's
I know
ability.
Yeah. What do your elf eyes see? Well, my elf eyes can actually see around the sphere. No, the world is still spherical, and it's spherical for all who live on it. So I can't subscribe to that. What I can subscribe to is the straight way, that they have now the ability, the elves do, that when they choose to sail west to Valinor, they are somehow able to leave the surface of the ocean and sail into the sky and breathe in vacuum until they arrive to Valinor. It's a crazy thing, but I can certainly allow for that to be a sort of a one-time, special little passage for the elves, when they sail west, rather than somehow all the elves experience the earth in a completely incompatible way. Yeah. I mean, but then you get Schrodinger's world, right? Is it flat? Is it a sphere? We don't know. Some sort of, quantum string, something or other. Just that's a good question though, Jerry. But yeah, I'm not going to buy that. All right. I think we definitely have time for a couple more, Matt.
All right. Next up, we have Diane.
All right. You gave us the chance to jump on some insults before. What incredible fun are you going to give us now?
Okay, so I'm thinking it was a very long walk, from Rivendell down to wherever they're, to Mordor or Gondor. And the hobbits are about, half the size of men. So did they have to run the whole way to keep up with the men?
I would imagine they walked at a slightly increased pace, and the men probably walked a little slower to let them keep up. Gandalf would have already been used to that. Strider certainly, in the time where he was leading the hobbits from Bree all the way to Rivendell. Though, in fairness, their pace changed after Frodo got hurt, and they had to put him on the pony. Yeah, that's I could see them walking kind of quickly, but they would have the rest of them would have had to slow down. They're not going to be like the three hunters. Can you imagine if you had the three hunters, but one of them was a hobbit? Running. That would be bad.
Oh gosh,
that would little sprinting guy, like a cartoon.
I will say this question does remind me of just how meticulous Tolkien was about distances.
Oh my goodness, so meticulous.
And he like actually planned it out by strides, like by steps of the different races.
We both saw that same exact document in the museum
at Marquette.
At the Bodleian. Oh, I was thinking back in I think we saw the one at the Bodleian that had the strides.
Oh, was it? Okay. I was thinking it was the one we were at Marquette for the...
It might have been both.
Prancing Pony one.
Because I know they brought a lot of documents over from the Bodleian for that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly a fun thing to think about. I'm hearing this sort of cartoon, I got to find that sound effect somewhere. But also, you're just picturing Sonic the Hedgehog or, now, well, of course it's got to be Sonic because of the rings. Da-dum-dum.
Oh.
That's got to be what it's going to be like. Yeah, that's terrible. I'm sorry. Matt, who's next? we can't end on that one.
Next up, we got Nakat.
Nakat, welcome back.
So I have another one from Lord of the Rings. It is, I'm going to read out just a couple of sentences here. But the enemy has the move, and he is about to open his full game, and the pawns are likely to see much of it as any. Peregrine, son of a paladin. So, did hobbits know how to play chess?
That is such a good question. Yeah, I remember thinking that felt like one of those things that didn't fit. It's a very interesting thing. Oh, man. There are a lot of those anachronisms in...
they know how to play golf. They know how to play golf.
They know how to play golf.
Why not
right?
chess?
We know that there are other things along those lines. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that might come up.
I just want to add into it that my husband and I, we were watching the movies again, and in the very beginning, and he spotted it because he's a chess nerd. So I'm just showing you the picture over here. These two hobbits in the beginning playing
they
chess.
are playing some sort of board game. It looks like chess.
Yes, it does look a little bit like chess. Yeah.
Yeah. So for folks listening in, because of course the show is audio, we are able to see our guests on Questions After Nightfall. We just don't record all of our faces for your benefit, folks. And she's showing us a screenshot from the film in one of the pubs there in the Shire. And yeah, they are playing a game that looks very much like chess. I did find something out that I did not know. I found it out just now as I was researching this. In an early phase of The Hobbit, the Battle of the Green Fields, where the Goblin King was called Fingolfin, golf wasn't the only thing invented. Chess was invented because the battle was won by checkmate. Now, that was removed because it was an over-the-top philologist's joke, because checkmate comes from Persian shahmat, meaning the king is dead. And they killed the Goblin King. Gosh. So it was won by checkmate. And that's just too many layers for a book that's designed to be for kids, I think. But that is so cool. The reference to chess was removed in the second phase when it was changed to just the Battle of the Green Fields. Earlier, it was the Battle of the Green Fields of Felin. So that's all I've got. It, to me, seems like one of those references, kind of like tobacco. They call it pipeweed, but they also call it tobacco at several points. So which is it? And of course, we know that pipeweed is nicotiana. Tolkien makes that pretty clear in the prologue.
Right.
But it is sort of a thing that doesn't really fit. But I love it because chess is a fantastic game played across so many cultures, across so many centuries. Why not think that they had a game equivalent to that? I think the thing that comes to mind is maybe a fix is the reality that Tolkien was translating all of this, right? Tolkien was translating these things. Frodo's name was what was it again, Matt?
Oh, it was
Maori Labingi
crazy,
or something like that.
It's those Hobbit names.
Those actual Hobbit names, the actual Westron that then got translated into English. So here, Tolkien is translating whatever Westron tabletop game Tolkien is referring to, or Gandalf is referring to. He translates it for us as chess and talks about
Frodo
pawns.
is Maura.
Maura Labingi. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just some wild names in and words that are in Westron. Carningul is the name of Rivendell. I'm so glad he didn't stick with Carningul.
Yeah.
That just doesn't roll off the tongue like Rivendell.
Yeah.
And it's because what he's trying to do is translate those names into something that linguistically fits with us, which is why the Rohirric words are Old English. And better than that, the Northmen's names before that were Gothic, which I love that, because the connection between Gothic and Old English and then modern English is the same connection between the Northmen and the Rohirrim and, what we read in the text. Is fantastic. So that's maybe the saving thing right there, is maybe Tolkien was just translating the name of some 1v1 board game with it could have been the equivalent of Go. It could have been the equivalent of, anything really, because cultures would have had some sort of game that we could analogize to chess. So maybe that's it. It's the only thing I can think of, Matt.
Yeah, that's as good a guess as I can come up with. So, yeah.
Well, I think we do have time for one last one before we go. Who do we have up next?
Next, we have Lewis.
Lewis, you just ducked in under the wire. What do you have?
Oh boy. Now, I'm not sure if it's a lighthearted one in the Night On, but I was thinking about in our conversation about the Valar, and about how the Valar are not quite omnipotent,
right,
and not quite omniscient. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about them in terms, comparing them to the elves and men, the firstborn and secondborn. And so I was wondering if we could actually call the Valar the zeroth born. Sort of, Eru's first, here are these beings to put into the world, and they're learning. Mm-hmm. They're making mistakes, and they're doing well sometimes. They make mistakes sometimes. They turn evil sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just thinking about, what do you think about that, as sort of the Valar as almost a third type of race that Eru creates?
I certainly, they fit in a hierarchy in the sense that they are to the elves what the elves are to men in many ways. Even to the extent of, just as men who marry elves are deemed to have married up, whether we're talking about Beren marrying Luthien or Aragorn marrying Arwen, it's the same thing with Thingol and Melian. Now, she's not a Vala, but she is a Maya, and that's the same sort of type of being in the sense that they are creatures of Iluvatar's thought. So...
Which makes it all the more ridiculous that he doesn't listen to her more often.
I know. Seriously. Eternal being, been around since the beginning of the beginning. Actually, before that. Time? I'm older than that. I came from Eru's brain. You should listen to me. Man. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, Matt. That's really a good point. Yeah, I feel like that's certainly a fair analogy to make. I like that step. And of course, they are, like you pointed out, they are still learning. They are not perfect in their knowledge. We read that in the Silmarillion. I'd have to pull up the actual text, but there's no indication that they are all powerful, all knowledgeable, and the evidence points very clearly to the fact that they don't always make the wisest decisions. Certainly with the benefit of hindsight, I don't think they would have even invited the Eldar to come over. That's not really the thing that worked out. So, I do like them as sort of an imperfect example that the elves can sort of look up to. They'll never have those powers, but just like men will never have the power of immortality. So, yeah. I like that. The Valar are a really interesting set of characters. I feel like folks who haven't dabbled in the Silmarillion are missing out, because the stories there are really fantastic. If you like all the old stories about the Greek gods and the Roman gods, you get some of the same thing here, minus the petty jealousy.
Yes. All the cringeworthy things that, those gods get up to.
With the exception of Melkor, of course, but
Well, yeah, but
there's always got to be a Satan. Somebody's got to be the devil,
But in like Greek mythology, where it's like how many characters are the result of like some god coming down and having relations,
having his way with,
having his way with
sometimes not so willing either. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, Tolkien's does us a solid and doesn't use any of that elements. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah. They're definitely lacking in knowledge. I love how, though, when they team together, they're stronger, right? With Manwë and Varda, for instance, their powers, when they're combined, right? When Manwë there ascends his throne and looks forth, if Varda is beside him, he sees further than all other eyes, through mist and through darkness and over the leagues of the sea. And if Manwë is with her, Varda hears more clearly than all other ears the sound of voices that cry from east to west. So, we do see oftentimes that their powers are great. They are seriously great powers, but they're even greater in combination. And now I'm picturing them doing Wonder Twins activate form of. I don't know why the most random stuff pops in my head, but it does. And sometimes it's entertaining, hopefully this time. But we are finally running out of time for tonight. So folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Thankfully, I'm sure some of you are saying at this point, but please be sure to join me and Matt again next week as we open up Appendix A again, this time to visit the House of Eorl.
Yeah, I am super pumped. I love the Rohirrim. They have like some of the best moments,
don't they? I'm so looking for. Helm, the killing of Skada the Worm. There's so many great things coming up. Yeah, and fantastic.
The horn that passes down to Mary from that. Good stuff.
Yes.
Well, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP as always. Editor Jordan Rannells. Sorry, Jordan. I'm just going to say that. This isn't even a mistake per se, but just sorry, Jordan, that you have to put up with me again. Barlaman, Becca Davis, social media manager, Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator, Katie McKenna, graphic artist, Megan Collins, and website guru, Phil Dean.
That's right. And please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find our show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including the all-new art from Megan.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, after all, a podcast about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link to it in our library. We do get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier, some of whom are here. I'll start with Demay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, June in Ireland, Zaksu in Illinois, Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, and Keith in Alabama.
There's also Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, Olivia in London, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Bailey in Texas, Kevin in Massachusetts, Julie in Washington, Bruce in California, and Joe in Maryland. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, the best insults from Tolkien's Legendarium to Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com.
And if you want to make your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us. Please be sure to still email the question to Barlaman, though.
Now, even though Barlaman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able. As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
This is the end. We are going. We are leaving now. Goodbye.